A caretaker prime minister, his own MPs saying it, and a government losing control of everything. This week's prime minister's questions wasn't just another parliamentary exchange, it was a systematic exposure of Labour's failures across every department. Kemi Badenoch came armed with numbers, facts, and questions Keir Starmer couldn't answer. Because the truth is brutal. Under Labour, everything is getting worse. Badenoch opened with the question everyone's asking. Why are Starmer's own MPs calling him a caretaker prime minister? Not opposition rhetoric, his own side. Because they can see what the public sees. A prime minister who's lost control of his party. Ministers so busy trying to replace him, they've taken their eyes off the ball completely. The energy sector tells the story perfectly. Labour promised to cut energy bills by £300. That was the pledge. The commitment families were told to believe. What's the reality? Energy bills have risen by £187 since the election. Starmer tried deflecting with his £150 support payment. But that doesn't change the fact he broke his promise. Bills went up, not down. That's failure in the simplest terms. Education paints an even grimmer picture. Labour pledged to recruit 6,500 more teachers. Schools desperately need them. Class sizes are exploding. Teacher shortages crippling education quality. So how many extra teachers has Bridget Phillipson delivered since becoming education secretary? Actually, there are 400 fewer teachers now than when she took office. Fewer, not more. The opposite direction entirely. Starmer tried claiming there are more teachers than the Conservatives left. Phillipson shook her head at Badenoch's figures. But the numbers are right there on the Department for Education website. Public information anyone can verify. The government either doesn't check their own data or doesn't care when reality contradicts their spin. Policing shows the same pattern. Starmer promised 13,000 more officers. Communities facing rising crime were told help was coming. The truth? There are now 1,300 fewer police officers than at the election. Crime isn't falling. Officers aren't arriving. The promise was broken before the ink dried. Healthcare might be the worst failure of all. Wes Streeting said he would end doctor strikes. That was his signature commitment. His reason for existing as health secretary. He gave doctors a massive pay rise to secure peace. So how many appointments have been lost to strike action since then? 93,000 appointments canceled? 93,000 patients left waiting because Streeting's solution didn't work. Starmer tried boasting about 5 million extra appointments, but context destroys that spin completely. In the Conservatives' last year in office, 6.5 million extra appointments were delivered. Labour is doing less while claiming more. That's not progress. That's decline disguised as achievement. The pattern is undeniable now. Jobs down, bills up, police numbers down, teacher numbers down, strike action continuing. Every metric that matters to ordinary families moving in the wrong direction, not marginally, significantly. This isn't teething problems for a new government. This is systematic failure across every department. Badenoch connected the dots everyone can see. Cabinet ministers aren't focused on their jobs. They're competing for Starmer's job. The energy secretary positioning himself for leadership. The health secretary definitely wants the top role. Even the home secretary reportedly having conversations with Tony Blair because he's already given up on the current prime minister. The only minister not trying to replace Starmer is Rachel Reeves, and that's only because she's desperately trying to cling on to her own job after the budget disaster. Nobody wants the chancellor's position. They all want the prime minister's. That tells you everything about internal confidence in Starmer's leadership. The former deputy prime minister's comments about Streeting are particularly brutal. She'd rather stick pins in her eyes than be on his golden ticket to leadership. That's not opposition criticism. That's Labour figures turning on each other publicly. When your own side starts briefing like that, the end is approaching fast. Starmer's responses throughout the session were telling. He couldn't answer simple factual questions about his own government's performance. How much have energy bills fallen? He didn't know. How many extra teachers? He got it wrong. How many police officers? Wrong again. How many appointments lost to strikes? No idea. Instead of answers, he delivered deflection, blamed the previous government endlessly, claimed credit for things that aren't true, attacked Badenoch's credibility rather than addressing her facts. When a prime minister can't defend his record, he attacks the person asking questions. That's not strength, that's desperation. The Liz Truss attacks were particularly weak. Starmer kept claiming Badenoch thinks Truss was 100% right. But that's not the question being asked. The question is why everything under Labour is measurably worse than before. Why promises are being broken systematically. Why ministers don't know their own department's performance. Badenoch's £47 billion savings plan drew predictable attacks. Starmer called it austerity and unspecified cuts. But she's laid out exactly where savings come from. $23 billion from welfare reform, the rest from government efficiency. Use half to cut the deficit, use half to cut taxes. That's not austerity, that's fiscal responsibility. Compare that to Labour's approach, tax and spend, borrow more every year, break promises on tax thresholds, hike employer national insurance, freeze allowances, introduce new property taxes, all while delivering worse results across education, healthcare, policing, and energy. That's the Labour record in numbers. The trade deal deflection was particularly absurd. Starmer tried claiming credit for deals Badenoch worked on as trade secretary. She literally started the Turkey fighter jet deal in January that he's now celebrating. But facts don't matter when you're desperate to change the subject from your failures. The minimum wage attack shows Labour's dishonesty. Badenoch never said freeze it. She said it's already high, and further increases need balancing against employment effects. Nuanced policy discussion versus soundbite distortion. Guess which one Starmer prefers. The NATO and G7 attack was even weaker. Nobody is saying don't attend international meetings. The criticism is Starmer prioritizes photo opportunities abroad while his government collapses at home. Flying around the world doesn't fix the NHS, doesn't recruit teachers, doesn't stop strikes, doesn't lower energy bills. What makes this particularly damaging for Labour is the contrast between promise and delivery. They campaigned on change, on competence, on actually making things better after conservative chaos. Voters gave them a chance based on those commitments. And in barely a year, every measure of success shows failure instead. The caretaker prime minister label stings because it's accurate. Starmer isn't leading. He's managing decline while his cabinet maneuvers for succession. He's not driving change. He's defending broken promises with increasingly desperate rhetoric. He's not building confidence. He's presiding over measurable deterioration across government. The discipline problems tell their own story. 21 former Conservative MPs have defected to reform. Not because they love Nigel Farage's politics necessarily, because they can't defend the Conservative record under current leadership. That's brutal for both main parties, voters rejecting the whole establishment duopoly. But Labour's situation is arguably worse, because they're in power. They're making decisions. They're breaking promises in real time. Every month that passes with worse results strengthens the case against them. And unlike Conservatives, they can't blame the previous government forever. The polling reflects this reality. Labour's honeymoon ended faster than any government in modern history. Trust ratings collapsed. Approval numbers through the floor. By-elections showing massive swings against them. This isn't normal adjustment to governing. This is rejection of actual performance. Badenoch's closing argument landed with devastating force. Under Labour, everything is getting worse. Jobs, bills, police, teachers, everything moving the wrong direction. The cabinet should focus on their actual jobs. Instead, they're competing for the caretaker's position. Nobody wants the chancellor's job. Everyone wants the prime minister's. That's not a functioning government. That's a failing administration in slow-motion collapse. Starmer's response showed why he's in trouble. Rather than defend his record, he attacked Badenoch personally, called her someone nobody listens to with no credibility. But the facts speak regardless of who delivers them. Energy bills are up. Teachers are down. Police are down. Strikes continue. Those numbers don't care about personality politics. The weakness accusation particularly stung. Badenoch said Starmer is clinging to reform's coattails for political positioning. Weak leadership avoiding difficult decisions. He couldn't rebut it effectively because there's truth there. When did Labor last take a genuinely difficult decision against their base? They're captured by unions, activists, and backbenchers. What the British public sees is straightforward. A government that promised change delivering more of the same. Ministers focused on internal positioning rather than external delivery. A prime minister who can't answer basic questions about his government's performance. Promises aid and immediately broken across every major policy area. This isn't sustainable politically. Something has to give. Either Labor changes course dramatically, or voters will change government at the next opportunity. The caretaker label suggests even Labor MPs know this. Starmer's time is limited. The question isn't if he'll be replaced, but when and by whom. For now, Britain is stuck with a failing government led by a weakening prime minister, defended by increasingly desperate rhetoric. The numbers don't lie. The promises were broken. The competence doesn't exist. And Kemi Badenoch made absolutely certain everyone knows it.